Hello and welcome to the webinar. We are going to get started here. Today we'll be talking about Office 365 with some information, tech, and tidbits for you provided by Ease Technologies. I'd like to welcome Ian next to me here. Ian's one of our help desk specialists. Hey Ian, and we're glad to have Ian with us because Ian's been involved in a lot of our accounts, especially over the last several months where we've been doing Office 365 and you've been engaged with a lot of accounts with that.
Yeah.
So,
That's sort of the bread and butter.
all right.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun to have Ian involved with us with any questions or ideas he's been running into. And also on the screen, you can see there as well as Matt Schmidt. Hey, Matt.
Hi, hello.
And Matt is joining us from our southern offices. And let's get started. So let's just talk about our agenda. As mentioned in the email and when you signed in, we'll be talking about Office 365. Just a brief overview for everyone who is or isn't using it, just to remind you about what features you do have. Office 365, we'll be covering what's new, how to manage your Outlook inbox. I had a few people request, how do we do that? What can we do to kind of make, what can you do to make your life more efficient in dealing with the plethora of emails you do get? A couple new features in OneDrive, and then a few other areas that we didn't cover it on a specific slide. We're just going to cover it at the end with what I call a grab bag of tech tips. Okay. I'm looking to record this, so if it's kind of quick for you in some areas, you want to get back to it, I'd suggest you look for the recording. You can follow up again on some more details with the rebroadcast. Or if any questions come up we're not covering or it wasn't clear, by all means, just email me and be happy to cover it for you. So let's start with an Office 365 overview, just a couple things for everyone as they are or not familiar with it. The biggest thing I think when talking with people, some people either have it already or they're just not familiar with it. So Matt and Ian, how many of our accounts, for example, that we're covering are using Office 365? Percentage-wise.
Yeah, percentage-wise, at least from the ones that I encounter on a daily basis, it's almost pretty much the norm now, I'd say. So I expect to be working with Office 365, I think, when I pick up the phone.
Okay.
So.
Matt?
Yeah, I'd say about 80%. I mean, we have some of our education clients that uses Google's G Suite, but even the ones that use G Suite still use Office 365, just because of the way the licensing works. It's convenient for them to have access to both. So for us, it's not a one size fits all. We'll support what people need to get the job done, but certainly I would say Office 365 is the most prevalent.
Yeah, the benefit is that the Office 365 components work on Windows, Macintosh, iOS, Android, and then there's web interfaces to a lot of this. Each platform has its different features, but for the most part, I would say 89% of it's all the same across all platforms. Certainly the mobile applications aren't as rich or don't have the same applications, but there's a lot there is what it comes down to. A lot of the typical applications that are out there, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneDrive, are available, plus a lot more. And we'll cover a few of those today, but most people don't realize that your licensing that you have through Office 365 gives you access to all these different platforms, these applications, as well as extended licensing to not only the device you're using, but to allow you to use it in your home as well. Is that you'd say, Matt? Do you share that with people as well?
Yeah. I mean, the licensing is very convenient for home users. You get up to 5, personal desktops or laptops, plus another 5 mobile devices, tablets or cell phones. So it's really great. It's very flexible.
Yeah. So if you are using an Outlook at home or at work, and you have Excel and Word, all those typical applications, you can sign up and use it on your home computer as well. All right. So let's get started. So Matt, you came up with this newer application that came out called Microsoft Invoicing. You want to cover that for us a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I feel like every time I log into Office 365, they've added a new app that I didn't know existed before. And certainly that happened when we started doing a little research for this presentation. So Microsoft Invoicing, it's designed for small business, and it's basically a way to invoice clients and create estimates that can be converted to invoices once the work's done. If you have a PayPal account, you can have that tied in and accept debit and credit cards online. And very nicely, because a lot of our people use QuickBooks, it is designed to sync with QuickBooks. So it's a really nice little app for small business.
Now, is this online only? Is it Windows-based? Where would they run into this?
There is it's definitely one of the online apps. I believe it's available across the board. I could be wrong, and
I don't think it's for Mac.
when you said that, I started doubting myself. But
I don't think it's for Mac. But yeah, no, I think Microsoft's strategy is to drop in a lot of these, I call introductory apps almost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, so typically for a small business who may not or want to use a different program for invoicing, but are looking to graduate from using maybe Microsoft Word,
Right.
you know,
Or a spreadsheet.
Yeah. So they
Right.
would start in with something like this. And most of these apps are pretty light compared to more sophisticated, but they would provide somebody a small business to get going with something.
Yeah, definitely not for a large established business. But if you're trying to get something off the ground, and you already have Office 365, you have access to this.
Yeah.
This is, I mean, it's great. Their value adds. It really, this is why it's good that G Suite is still out there, even if, we might not particularly lean on it more. You can see Microsoft throwing in more and more and more and more with the same Office 365 license.
I think what's good here is for people who are using PayPal. This would be a really convenient way to kind of get that going for somebody. So pretty good.
It is available as a mobile app and on Windows, and I'll have to confirm with everybody later whether it's available on Mac.
Okay, thank you. And there it is.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. OneDrive on demand. So this has been a feature around for a little bit on Windows, but it's been slowly rolling out. And this is kind of typical. Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah. So this
Why don't you
is
describe it for us.
Yeah. So this is a new feature that so it allows OneDrive to work with your existing SharePoint libraries. So it sort of creates even more overlap between the two applications. Microsoft has sort of made them a unified kind of document sort of storage platform. SharePoint can obviously dive into like a ton more, but this is sort of there. If people have worked with, I think Dropbox has a similar feature, and then Google Drive, I think they call it File Stream, I think is what it's called. But basically this allows you to, right from your File Explorer, browse to your SharePoint libraries in a way that lets you see everything. It lets you, preview the content. But it doesn't necessarily sync or download everything to your computer. So the great thing about that is you have this quick access to your stuff through SharePoint without having to navigate through a browser or having to re-sign in or do all these other things just to get to a file. But you're not then pulling everything down to your computer and bogging it down with, hundreds of gigabytes of everything your company has ever worked on ever.
And OneDrive, I'd say the best comparison would be to Google Drive or Dropbox.
Yes. Yeah.
And then what Microsoft has done is made OneDrive in conjunction working with SharePoint.
Yeah, this is almost sort of making OneDrive a front end,
right?
I would say to the SharePoint document storage part of it.
So Dropbox, and we were talking about this earlier last week, preparing for this, is that I think it's I don't say the quintessential cloud drive that's out there. It has its metaphoric kind of approach to folders, much like the Mac originally was. So it's very Mac-like in its capability, where I like the idea that you can round trip a file from one device and open up another device that's right there waiting for it.
Right.
And OneDrive and Google Drive do that as well. OneDrive's been slowly adding more features, catching up to it. This is one of those features. I think it's almost making OneDrive, not replacing Dropbox, but certainly, trying to move around large files. I know we've worked on some images that I've used with our marketing department, and I can't send them a large image. I gotta set something into Dropbox, or in this case, OneDrive, to move those kind of 100 megabyte files around, because you just can't email them per se. So there's new features. OneDrive is adding this. On demand is one of those things that you can select how much of the images, files, folders you have stored in the cloud, how much it comes down to your device. And really it mitigates from having to just get overloaded with too much space being taken up by those.
Exactly.
documents.
I mean, I can think of a specific example where I've worked with somebody who had their AutoCAD files saving to OneDrive using this. And it was great for them because those files were like 1 gig, 2 gigs a pop, just one file right there. And it was great that they had the assurance that not only was it saved to the computer that they were on, it was then getting backed up automatically to that online SharePoint OneDrive location. And then if they needed to go onto another computer, they just needed to have
Right.
OneDrive set up right there, and boom. Yes, the file has to download again, but you're picking that, as it describes it, on demand. You're able to quickly get to where you need to.
I like OneDrive for a couple of reasons. One of it, which is that again, it goes between Windows, iOS, and Mac, but
Mhm.
also as an Office 365 part of the package, you get to have, I think it's a terabyte.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
OneDrive.
yeah.
So it's a
quite
lot.
bit.
So Dropbox, you're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
With OneDrive, it's included.
Mhm.
So
It's a great thing to toss in with the 365 accounts that everybody has already.
all right. Microsoft Bookings, Matt, you want to help us out with that one? That's something else you came up with too.
Yeah, so this is another new app that came out from Office 365, and this is for, again, small business, but designed for businesses that take appointments, essentially. So if they, I think we have some examples up there like hair salons, dentist's office, any kind of repair shop. I mean, anybody that needs to book an appointment and show up for an appointment. You can book an appointment straight from the website. You can link it back to your website, or you can link it to your Facebook page. And then customers can go on there, make appointments, set appointments, and then you can check people in once they're there for their appointment. It is definitely more of a mobile access type of app designed for iOS and Android and the web more than I would say a specific desktop application.
Cool. Anything else to add to that?
I don't think so. I mean, it's again another little service for small businesses. So I think that Microsoft is trying to build this suite of if you're trying to create a new business, a new small business, and get it off the ground, you'll have everything you need within Office 365 and able to do that. So it's really quite interesting the way they're going.
Great. So again, just to cover a few of these overall apps, and Matt, you want to maybe touch on a few of these for me here, if you're familiar with some of them?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Once you log into your Office 365 on the web, you can click on the applications, and it'll basically give you a kind of a menu of everything that's available. And we've covered some of these apps in the past. You've got your basic things like Outlook, the mail calendar, and people are your contacts. You've got your basic Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and then you've got some of these ones that we've been covering like Tasks and Power BI and Sway, some of the newer things. And as they add applications, that's where you'll find them here.
Yeah, so there's a lot to it. Again, if you haven't been logged into the web version of this, most people are just mostly familiar with their
Oh yeah, it's the desktop apps.
apps. Yeah,
Yeah,
but the number of other apps that are available. For example, I use To Do, and it's not available as a desktop app yet, but I use that as a browser. I just keep it as my to-do list, but it also lets me round trip over to my iOS device. So I can go to my mobile device, get my to-do list, but also get on the browser and keep it going there.
And the functionality that they have for these apps, I mean, if you're familiar with PowerPoint and Word and Excel, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it's pretty close. I mean, it's almost everything that you would need to do on a normal day-to-day basis. If you're doing, some super high-end spreadsheet with macros, and pivot tables and things like that, it's not necessarily going to be the same as a desktop application, but it's about 80% there, and it's only going to get better over time.
Yep. Great. Thank you. So one of the areas I wanted to talk about was Outlook for iOS, because there's been a continued update in this area a lot for a lot of reasons. I think that iOS is obviously the predominant mobile app platform, and their application for iOS is very popular. I think personally it's probably the best mobile email app. I use it pretty regularly. Not everyone does. I mean, Apple's Mail is very good too, but I've switched over to all my business email and calendaring through the Outlook for iOS. Matt, are you using it at all? I forget.
I do. I use it almost exclusively on the business side of the house, just because it is very robust performance. It does. There's one thing left that I can't do on the mobile side that I can on the desktop side. And as soon as they fix that, I think I would be pretty happy in the mobile version every day. But it just becomes more and more robust. I was kind of looking for things to talk about today. The security on the mobile side for Outlook is very robust. So you can actually turn on Touch ID or Face ID, so you can log into Outlook and with either your your face, or whether with your thumbprint, which secures your email. So even if your device is unlocked, they would still need some way to get into your email. So it's just another layer of security that they've added for Outlook. The other nice thing that I really like, and I haven't explored too much, but the more I look at it, the more I'm interested in it, is they've now added the add-ins. So third-party developers can take their software and create either add-ins for the full Outlook or the calendar app specifically. So they actually break it out between the calendar apps that can tie back into Outlook and the add-in apps. So things like Evernote, you can actually tie back in to Outlook. FedEx tracking. I use on the desktop one. There's a Starbucks one. So if you're trying to create a meeting where you want to meet somebody at Starbucks, it'll pull up the location closest to where you're trying to have that meeting. Just things like that, I think, have made the mobile Outlook just amazing.
Yeah, I like it from a calendaring standpoint. I find the calendaring functionality more accurate, and it works. And the contacts as well. I have found that Apple's contacts, email, and calendaring, which are 3 separate apps, are essentially rolled into one app for Outlook for iOS from Microsoft. And as a result, they work very well together. They're more productive, and they're accurate in what they're doing, as opposed to me being kind of lost and getting visually not aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I think it's something I've really tried to recommend to folks. I think it's a big strength having, especially if you're using a personal device also for your work email.
Yeah.
I think keeping it in the Outlook app itself, because it does the same thing on Android as well, which is what I use. It's really nice having that all self-contained, and knowing that when I go to my personal calendar and contacts, I'm not all of a sudden seeing a bunch of stuff synced from another work account in there. I really like having all of it self-contained in Outlook, all of it organized there. And like you guys were saying, the functionality within it is really good. I mean, once Google had another email app called Inbox on Android that people really liked, and they killed that like a couple months ago. And ever since then, everybody said, "What do I do now?" And I always see Outlook come up as.
Did you say that Google killed an app?
Yes, believe it or not. Yeah, Google came up with an app that people really liked, and then they turned around and killed it. And they didn't offer you a replacement.
The graveyard of Google apps.
Oh, there's a great website. I think it's literally called just the Google Graveyard.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. But so for Android folks, it's pretty much the same app. It looks the same. It functions the same. It's great. Would definitely recommend it.
What's that mean?
That actually brings up a good point. The Outlook support for Gmail now on both the mobile and the desktop is rock solid. It just works. It was a little glitchy in the past, and they seem to have worked out all the bugs. You now authenticate through Google, but once you're authenticated and your Gmail's in there, it just works.
Yeah, so Microsoft announced, I think it was in September, they teased it back in May, and I still don't know that I've seen it, is an update that's coming for Outlook probably any time now. It's basically a big overhaul to the user interface, how you engage with it. There's a little picture here on the left-hand side of what it looks like. So it's a lot different. It's not revolutionary. It's just more evolutionary. But you'll be able to do, and some of these things, the last 2 bullet points, scheduled emails and focused inbox, which we'll talk about in a little bit, are things that are available now. Mm-hmm. It's just how you engage with those kind of things are going to change a little bit. So net is, if you're not using Outlook for iOS and you have Office 365, it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
So I did get an email from one of our clients about how to better manage email. And it is sort of one of the more daunting things out there, I think, that everybody universally deals with. And, I'm certain that probably a good percentage of our calls and requests in the help desk evolve around email in some capacity. They could be everything from security. I got this bad email. What should I do with it? Right? Is that one of the ones?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. To just, I actually had one from one of our employees today. I said, I got this email. It looks like it was to you. What should I do with it? And it was like, so to me, everyone deals with a lot of email management issues. And I know that the productivity and having to understand a lot of this is daunting at best sometimes. So I wanted to share, and I did this in a separate webinar probably last year, but I'll condense it down to a few ideas here for us all, how to better manage Outlook specifically, and what features are built into Outlook, whether you have a Macintosh, iOS, or your Windows computer, to really improve your mail management is what it comes down to. So first off, everyone has junk. We're going to talk about how you manage that a little better. A feature that you may or may not be aware of, it's called Focused. It allows you to, again, better control the amount of mail. People are aware about folders, just remind them about that. And finally, something you've probably heard about but don't know much about, just reminding you to think about rules. So 4 things to think about here. Junk and spam is a big one. You do have some controls here. And like anything else, there isn't just one switch within anything that happens for anybody to make all these problems go away. There's actually, in the case of Microsoft, there's actually a dialog box here that you need to engage and decide to what level you want to control and manage the amount of spam or junk email that comes in for you. And would you say that the Outlook then gets trained on this then, Ian, too?
Yeah, so you can even individually mark certain items right there in Outlook, as junk or not junk. You can even make it, pretty plainly clear that, hey, this sender is always junk or this sender is not junk. So you don't necessarily even have, there is a training process, but I'm just saying you can also even just go, no, I know this thing is always safe, or no, this is always blocked. So yeah, it's something I certainly try to point out to folks. Unfortunately, one of the ways it comes up most often is something gets blocked that you didn't want blocked.
Sure.
And that's probably the trickiest part, is that, knowing to check that junk folder, to keep an eye out for something that, for, whatever weird reason.
Yeah, sometimes they get a little aggressive.
Yeah.
But I have found that what my process has been is that I take, instead of just taking emails that are not something I want to see, and I recognize them to junk or spam to me, is not deleting them, but taking them and putting them in the junk of the spam.
Yeah.
And you have
sure.
to do that. Otherwise, it's not going to learn.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
because there may be, obviously there's tons of spam filtering that goes on, behind the scenes before it even hits your Outlook.
Right.
But nothing's perfect. And even that, you wouldn't want the spam filter to be, completely gung-ho, aggressive, blocking things left and right.
Well, some people might. It would be
maybe
only getting 3 emails a day.
That could be a preference. But yeah, we certainly, it's always it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
For sure.
I have found a way, even over the last, I'd say 10 months, since I think Matt and I worked on this a while ago, my email spam is probably lower than it's ever been, and I'm working off what's called a zero inbox strategy. So every day I'm keeping my email down to, at the end of the day, no more email in my inbox. It's a series of steps, but these are some of them. So you make sure your junk email options are sent, blocking certain senders as they come in. You're training Outlook to drag items in there that are any good to your junk email. So here are some menus that you have in Outlook for Windows that you can see when you get the junk. You can block the sender. You can also reverse some things too. You can block a whole domain if you wanted to, or unblock a domain. So you have a lot of controls on some of these things. The most important point is you have to be actively involved in doing it.
For sure.
If you're just dragging it to the trash, it's not going to get you anywhere. And you can monitor and go back and, as you said, review all of your old junk email and see if anything is it's getting a little too aggressive, which I do suggest. And about once a week I go in there, and I've had some conversations with some people where, hey, did you get my email? I go, oh, let me go check my junk email. Sometimes it does land in there, but that's a lot less than the amount of bad email that does go.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's so much that gets blocked.
All right, let's talk about Focus Inbox. Either you guys using Focus?
I have not been using.
All
I'll
right.
be honest with you, I was too scared to turn it on.
I've been using it for 10 months, okay? And there's a dialog box to turn focus on in your inbox. And once you do that, it creates a dialogue. It says, welcome to Focus. You're gonna now be able to decide what you want to have come into your main email and in your other email menu. I'll show you where that sits. Let's get a little. So right up top here is your focused, and to the right of it is other. So essentially, it's just another separate way of saying anything other that's not junk.
Right.
Okay, I am making a priority here. So anything that's focused could be things like employees, people I'm talking with, and dialogue on a regular basis. Other stuff may be newsletters that I want to keep. I'm not willing to say they're spam,
Right.
but I just want to get to them on my own time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way of funneling down what's going on. And again, it's a training process that you have to select something. So if I'm getting a newsletter every day, which I do want to see it, I would simply select and tell it to click on it to go to other. And then I'd click on other and it would show up there every single day after that.
Yep.
So really, it's just funneling down what's really important to you. So eliminate spam, remove unimportant emails to other, and then have focused emails, which may be a more higher priority for you, showing up. So it really eliminates all the clutter is what it comes down to.
If folks have like a Gmail account, if they're familiar with, I think in there they have, what is it, promotions and updates now, or it'll actually do the same sort of thing where it splits your inbox up kind of for you.
Yeah.
And you have your main tab where you see things that are directly addressed to you. But then if it's like, a newsletter about 50% off codes that you get every other week, it's, not gone. It's just in another section where, okay, now I can actually go see it and not, lose my focus.
Exactly. That's really good. I really encourage
Yeah.
anybody who's overwhelmed with emails to activate and turn on focus.
How long did it take you to train it, do you think?
Well, you're constantly training it. Okay, so you're constantly getting emails in that you didn't normally either spam or things like that. So you're deciding that at that point, is it spam? Is it something I want to continue to keep, but keep it in other? And so I'd say I'm constantly kind of just learning that, Matt, or having it teach it, I should say.
Okay.
Well, we're always going to know better than Outlook.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
You want to have that
you're-
control.
yeah.
Another one, old one's been around for a while, is folders. And I think using folders is critical. I think that a lot of people do use them. If you're using your inbox as your one and only folder, you're probably
Right. That's what
running into another problem for yourself. You do need to, manage it better. And so a lot of people I do know have lots and lots of folders. It becomes a very challenging situation. And that's where maybe rules can help you out with some of that too, which I'll show you in a second. But folders have been improving as well. You can reorder them, move them around, make subfolders, things like that, which really makes it kind of helpful. I think that's been good for me. There's a lot of little tips and tricks you can do with some of this stuff too. So for example, when I get the rules, I'll show you the menu on that, but I use rules and folders. So when I get something from one person that I know I want to keep up with, it comes in my inbox, in my focused inbox. I'll read it and then just delete it. But when it comes in, I've already made a multiple copy of it and it gets filed for me automatically. So it's one way, it's a rule that I've set up to, when it comes in, I read it, I just delete it, but it's already been filed as well because it duplicates it.
Right.
Okay. There's a lot of little tricks you can do with some of these things to really save yourself some time. Does that one make sense, Matt?
Oh yeah, I live and die by folders in Outlook.
Okay. So folders and rules, I think, go together. Again, old feature, widely underused. It can get complicated, but when you do use it, you need to test it.
Yes.
I've sent some stuff off to some strange places, or it just evaporated, I think, sometimes to make sure. So you run it and you test it, but you can receive a certain email from someone that's going to have it sent off to somewhere else. And this is the case where it comes from one person, it gets duplicated, and then it gets sent to the one folder. If I get certain emails about sales information, it gets highlighted to me, and it's an exclamation point comes to it, and it gets drawn to my attention. So there's certain rules you can do for certain things, and all four of these things, adjusting your spam by teaching and learning it, the system to know what is and isn't spam for you, using the focused other combination, and then of course with the rules, and as we're talked just previously about, making sure you have really good folders, you can save yourself a lot of time. Now, I understand it's going to take a little bit to do this, But again, if you're overwhelmed by it, you're gonna have to invest a little time yourself to make it better. Matt, Ian, do you have any other suggestions?
No, I have found that some of my older rules, sometimes I have to go in and reset. So if you start seeing things that occur that maybe aren't as expected, go in and check that rule. And sometimes it's just a matter of unchecking and rechecking it, the box to kind of reset that rule and get it going again.
And the other thing too is sometimes the condition you set it up with, the rule with change.
That's true.
So if somebody, it could be as simple as the sender of an email just changes, and then all of a sudden your rule doesn't, work, or even worse, starts doing something you don't expect.
Exactly.
So it's definitely good to be. It's not a set once and forget about thing. It's a set it up once, maybe don't worry about it all the time, but be kind of cognizant that
Right.
things are there.
I would just look at Outlook as being a very sophisticated database.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different features built into it to give you controls to manage what comes in and what doesn't. You just need to be an active participant in it to make it work successfully for you. Let's get to a few grab bag of tech tips. We were talking before about some multi-factor authentication thing. I think you had some thoughts on some of this. I think Ian, remember?
Yeah. So multi-factor authentication is something I've really seen take off in the last year. I'd say specifically not even just specifically with Microsoft, with Office 365, but especially with that platform, just because that was something that was sort of reserved for the top tiers, the super pricey, whatever licensing, and now it sort of is available to everybody that has an Office 365 account, kind of, regardless of the tier that you're at. So what that really means, I should probably have explained what multi-factor is beforehand, is most of you all are probably familiar with it when you log into like your online banking on like a new computer or something like that you have not used that online banking before. It'll probably have you go through a process where it says, we need to verify you are you. Let's send you a text code to a phone number that we know about, or something like that. So it's those login processes that instead of just asking for your password, it has you go through a second step. Right? It's multi-factor.
So one factor being your email.
One factor being
another
your password.
factor in your password.
So it's two things you know. Yeah, so that's the idea behind multi-factor. You might hear people also call it two-factor authentication. Multi-factor could technically be 1, 2, 3, or sorry, it couldn't be 1, but it could be 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure.
Some people get crazy where it's, you need to know your password, you need to have a key fob with you at all times, and then we got to scan your fingerprint. I mean, there's installations like that, not that we necessarily, but that could exist. So why I've been so excited about that and why I've been really pushing for that for a lot of folks is your password is not nearly as safe as it used to be, as we've learned more and more. We even just had what was that last week, that new data dump of 773 million different email accounts with, I think it was something like 80 million.
1 billion records.
Just something crazy. So, that's always going to be a battle that, we're always going to be fighting. Even if you had super complicated passwords that were just a random jumble of letters or this, that, or the other, nothing is ever really going to be, moving to these multi-factor authentication setups. So, that's something I've really been sort of, what's the word? Embracing, but also trying to be sort of a prophet or whatever. Yeah. I've tried to bang this drum just because it's.
So Office 365?
Office 365 has that. It's something they've started offering. I think it was last summer. It started trickling down to everybody. Like I was saying, no matter which applications
we're rolling that out to some of our accounts.
And we've really been really pushing that out to our accounts, and where we're seeing it already pay off a ton are folks that were victims of phishing attacks.
Okay.
So, those emails where they send you, an email and it says, oh, click on this link to download a file, but you need to sign in first. And then before they know it, boom, they've got your password. Suddenly, that doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it does. We want to know about those and prevent them, but, somebody just having your password all of a sudden goes from, oh my gosh, to, oh, we can work with this, and they still shouldn't have access to your account. So
our message there is whether you're using Office 365 or even other applications or services, multi-factor authentication through text messaging, which is one method, is a good way to go.
Yes. Yeah. If you have, any service that you are protective of that
Yeah.
you think it would be a real big pain in the butt to recover and get back to it, sign up for it. I mean,
Yeah.
Amazon's got it, Google's got it,
Apple's
Apple
got it.
ID has it. I mean, pretty much anybody who takes their security seriously with their service, they offer it now. And it's going to be easier to sign up for it now than after your account, gets
compromised.
hacked. Yes, exactly. So, yep. So
Great.
that's been my big thing.
I'm going to jump past the Excel forecasting and to prevent meeting forwarding. So this is this one. You familiar with this one?
A little bit. I'm assuming it kind of plays into with the encrypted emails. It's that rights
Well,
management kind of stuff.
It's just a one-off feature that came out this past summer in Outlook for meeting scheduling. I know I've come across this a few times where I've set a meeting up and then someone forwards the meeting to somebody else, and then all of a sudden there's other people invited to my meeting that I set up. I'm like, hey,
Oh, yeah.
I didn't invite those
Right,
people. You
right,
invited
right.
them. So there's a feature now built into Outlook across all platforms, I'm pretty sure, that lets you prevent people from forwarding your meeting to somebody
Mhm.
else. So a small little feature, but it's an example, as what Matt was describing earlier about there's small incremental changes that Microsoft's been doing with all these. They don't get like, here's version 14 and all of a sudden there's, 100 new features. It's like every month you get a little bit of something else that's thrown at you. And this was one of those features that was rolled out for Outlook for Windows in the summer, I think iOS in the fall, and then just recently for Macintosh Outlook this past December.
Mhm.
So it's just one of those small features that comes out. I like these little things. I remember when I heard about it, I was like, yeah, I could have used that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Encrypted emails, special. You familiar with that?
Yeah. So, and this is another thing that, again, I think last summer started getting handed out to everybody on Office 365 is these new email encryption options. And I think the reason why Microsoft really started offering this to everybody is if you're anybody that cares about any sort of, compliance, so HIPAA's like the big one, but, any of them at all.
Well, we have to think about all our customers.
Oh,
We have
yeah.
So many accountants,
Yeah,
lawyers,
legal, medical,
financial.
yeah. I mean,
everyone's
there's
sharing a lot of
right. There's so many different
private
sectors.
information.
Yeah. So the cool thing is they've now offered this thing where you can literally say, I'm this type of organization. I need these rules in place. And it can start to really do things where, in your example here, you can have, I put encrypted in the subject line of my email. It's going to automatically encrypt. It's going to make sure that that recipient on the other end, this kind of fits in with the meeting thing too, only they can read it. They can't forward it to somebody else. They can't, obviously people can take extraordinary steps to get your stuff, but you are doing everything within your power to keep that other person from doing something with that information they should. So that's been huge. That's been another thing that we've really started to really steer folks towards, because that previously would mean buying another Office add-in or buying ShareFile or whatever. I think it's just called Citrix Files now or something. I can't remember. They changed the name. So that's been great. That really helps for, if you're sending out, financial data or just anything sensitive at all, just knowing I've taken this email, I've locked it down, I've done the necessary steps to make sure that somebody on the other end does something with it. Then they're writing it down on a sticky note and they're being negligent or something like that.
It controls that better.
It controls that better.
Locking it up,
Right.
Transport and unlocking.
Exactly.
In an encrypted manner from end to end.
Exactly. And the great thing too is if it's Office 365 to Office 365 customers, everything just sort of happens bing, bang, boom, seamlessly. If you do send to another third-party email service, it'll then have you a lot of times go through like a little bit of a setup where you'll receive the email.
Right.
It'll say, go to this link. You'll open it up and it'll say, please confirm your email address. You'll type in your address and it sends you like a verification code and that's what gets you into the email.
So net is, it suggests is that with Office 365, encryption between a company is always there.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. And then encryption between other Office 365
right.
accounts that are there, that's there now, which wasn't there for a while ago, as a matter of fact. And then there's some other options for third party for other stuff like that too. This is a big deal. We've had a lot of people ask us about encryption for emails, and it's gotten a lot easier in a couple different ways. And so Microsoft's paid a lot of attention to it. There's not a lot of news on this, but there's some extra menus now available about how you go about encrypting emails,
Yes.
as I just described.
Yeah, so it's not even necessarily you have to have some sort of weird thing in the background that does it automatically for you. You get, like you're saying, with exactly. So it's not just, oh, I've got to remember to type encrypted, or oh, I have to do this, that, and the other. While those things are helpful, you then get the ability to also be a little bit more tightly in control of it too. So,
With all this too, we always are big proponents of password managers. There's 2 password programs that we like a lot. I know Matt and I have been using 1Password for quite a long time. Matt turned me onto it probably about 6 years ago. And the reason we say this is with all the suggestions and security things, all these complications of keeping passwords, using a password manager for yourself is going to be infinitely helpful with not only your personal passwords you need for everything from Facebook to, you know, all those kind of social media sites, to also your business ones, but also just everything in general. There's too many passwords you need to keep. Password manager is a great way to go. And Matt, did you want to share one more where you ran into a situation where we were trying to use scanning or photographing a document or something like that? Was that the case? Do you remember that with the picture we were using? We were sharing that document. We had a certain file format that wouldn't work.
Oh yeah, so there is a new file format, high efficiency image format, and then there's a high efficiency video codec, which is the video format, which were released from the people that do the MPEG standard. So Apple has actually switched for iOS devices. The default is now this standard, which the nice part is it's more efficient than JPEG, and it holds more data on the image file itself. So if you're into photography and you really want to do some granular editing, you have more controls in a smaller size. The problem came when we tried to use, someone was trying to submit a receipt for an expense through our system. It did not recognize that file format. So it's now used by Apple. It's also used by Instagram and Facebook. So it's going to become more prevalent, but it's not supported today natively by Windows 10. So you have to have some add-ons to be able to read those files. So it was just something that we kind of wanted to bring up and make people aware of in case you see it, if you're trying to submit an expense to your system or something. Just make sure you save the right format.
Someone takes a picture with their iPhone and sends it off.
Right.
This new format would be recognized by other iPhone users, but wouldn't be recognized by a Windows
right.
Yeah.
Which surprised me. I hadn't heard of it until this came up. And now I know more about it, so I thought it was an interesting topic to
They hit Android users too. My phone can save to those formats as well now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so it all works in Google Photos, but the moment I pull it into another source, I start to notice a little bit of the same
I'm
thing.
sure Windows will adjust to this, but certainly it's a complication when trying to share what used to be very easy to do with JPEG images and pictures.
Yeah.
Someone's made a change and everyone hasn't adopted it yet, so all this great way of doing stuff has now become a little more complicated with sharing pictures.
In 6 months, everybody will probably support it. It won't be an issue.
We'll catch up. Cool. I think we're wrapping up. I'm gonna do I'm gonna hold off on any questions because we're running out of time. So just a quick reminder for everyone, if you don't know us already, I know we have a lot of customers with us today, which is great. Love hearing from you. And if anything we did today that you need some help with, you have folks like Ian or myself to reach out to again, and Matt to help you with kind of your business and the technologies we were talking about today. But if you're not an Ease account just yet, we encourage you to learn more about us. We were founded in 1993. We're located in Columbia, Maryland. We cover Baltimore, Washington, Northern Virginia, small, medium-sized businesses throughout the region here. We provide a managed IT services model for those folks, as well as really some fantastic cloud solutions that a lot of our accounts are moving over to, where we virtualize everything in your office and make your life so much better by doing so. And not only is it easier to work with, cost effective, but it increases your security and disaster recovery by manyfold. So you can find out more about us at our website at easetech.com. Phone number there is 301-854-0010. And the cloud solution we mentioned to you is something really important that if you're thinking about cloud solutions, by all means, take a little time and contact me. I'd be happy to dig a little deeper with you and share with you details about how this solution can make and transform your business today. So I want to thank you guys for joining me.
Thank you.
And I want to thank everyone for joining us as well. You can reach me at davideastech.com, and you should see a survey coming out. I'd love to hear back from you how we did, and then any other topics that you might be interested in hearing from us on the next time we do one. So look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, folks.